The high performers he's working with are 100 millionaires, billionaires, professional athletes who the only way to get to where they are is to not have balance. They're likely dissatisfied with their life in some way. Having the life that we desire doesn't require more effort. It just requires new choices. We need reminders that the lesson of decisions quickly, that applies to everybody. I think there's things to take away from that show.
The cycle, when the stress hormones are high, that actually changes the pH of the meat. It actually impacts the quality of the nutrients that our body absorbs. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Full Stack Podcast. That's Mike. I'm Ted. And we don't have a guest today, Mike, because I wanted to take a moment and recap some of the amazing information that we've shared so far, just a couple months into the year. And I got to say, we've been drinking through a fire hose, brother.
Yep. Oh, yeah. That's a great guess.
Yeah. We're going to run through the gambit. I first want to start. This is not going to be in any chronological order, but this is an order that for the listeners can make sense in how you're going to build your stack and where we've been so far. And one of the foundational interviews we had was with Owen Hunt, aka Bootsy Greenwood, on the topic of reality transurfing. And right off the bat, my takeaway from that, for anyone who's like, okay, what's transurfing? First, you missed that episode, go back and check it out. But the idea of we don't manifest our future, we choose what from the infinite realities available to us, right? The space of variations, the idea of pendulums, these energetic informational structures, sports teams, political parties that take our attention and take our autonomy, because then we start operating to the will of said group, right? Group think. That interview alone with Bootsy was so fundamental in terms of how so many of us are living. So when it comes to reality transurfing, that is where I wanted to start with some of your insights, your reactions from the interview itself. For anyone listening, building their stack, first and foremost, we need to choose the timeline in which we live.
Yeah, anyone I know that's really satisfied with their life has taken a deep dive into metaphysics at some point. And I remember the first time someone asked me, like, have you gotten into metaphysical stuff yet? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. But I had studied some things. I didn't realize it was in that category. And that's what this is. And it's really about studying most people who are putting out books on metaphysics, like Vadim with Reality Transurfing, is really introducing us to a new way of thinking about things. You know, when pendulums are described, when Bootsy was on the show describing what pendulums were, you go, yeah, that makes sense. Every organization has an energetic field to it, and the people in it have to contribute their energy to it for it to continue to exist. If people withdrew their energy from it, it would die. And so it's like, oh, I never really thought about it like that before. I never thought about politics as a pendulum, that it requires our energy. Well, what happens if I just say I want to put my energy somewhere else? What if more people did that? Oh, we're actually getting to choose where our energy goes. And one of the things I really like about, and this came up on the show with Bootsy, was the choice language over creation language. So a lot of people in metaphysics talk about, be the creator of your reality, or, they use a lot of creator language. But one of the things that's different about reality transurfing was choice, and that the reality already exists in the space of variations, and you don't have to create the new life. You just choose the new life. And it's a much more, I think we need reminders that having the life that we desire doesn't require more effort. It just requires new choices. And if we've been living our lives in a way that the way we've been living it, our mental mind, the way we've been living, it can only project in the future what it can imagine. The imagination is built off of things from the past. And so you really have to learn how to access different states of consciousness in order to make new choices, which we didn't really get into that in the conversation there, but that's something that I've been interested in, is things like breath work, doing things to open up the aperture of vision so that you can see that there's another choice that you could be making. And I like the reminder that Bootsy also had of like, you know, I think that if you're making $100,000 a day and your goal is to make $10 million, well, the next step isn't doing the $10 million idea. It's, you know, there's not one choice to get you from 100,000 to 10 million. It's you make a choice and you step a little bit closer. That the space of variations is you get to a branch and then you get to another branch, which leads to another branch, which leads to another branch. And so I think about it as it's not a single choice that's going to get you the life you want. You have the opportunity to make a choice in every single moment that's going to lead you to where you want to go.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what really stuck with me on top of the choices, and you just said it with, it doesn't require more efforts, it requires better choices. I highlighted one of the takeaways of the fact that high performance requires cool detachment, right? Where the more important we make the goal, right, the harder it is because of the excess potential and really the balance of physics and the nature is, you know, the more important you make it, the more resistance it has to have. And that excess potential actually makes said goal harder to obtain. So we almost have to have this reduced internal importance, this reduced external importance, and more of a calm approach, which is where the breath work and the calmness comes into play to help us make those better decisions and choices along the way. When it comes to the choices, I want to jump into another great conversation we had. This was Dr. Andy Galpin, and he talked about the 10-point quadrant, the 4 quadrants. And just to break them down really quick, how he said there's business, relationships, physical practice, and recovery, and you break it 10 points into the 4 boxes. And I believe he had a rule too of your physical practice and your recovery can't be more than 2 points off of each other. That alone, when it comes to high performance, really puts into perspective of how you're chunking these 4 sections of your life. And the one thing that I really took away from Dr. Andy Galpin, and I've worked on this ever since because he works with the top performers in the world. He said the best performers in the world, what makes them so good is how quick they make decisions and how things come and it ping pongs right off of them. And this comes from a guy who I'm like, okay, I'm going to save all my responses to later in the day. And I like chunk things off. But like sometimes it takes 2 seconds to respond and I'm saving it to do it later on. Like why? When I should just do it right here, right now. I have the mental capacity to, I have the ability to. So those are some of the 2 things that stuck out for me with Dr. Andy Galpin.
Yeah, I really like the making quick decisions. And I think it was a good reminder of what a true high performer is. Because I think a lot of times, I think one of the things that happened at the beginning of the show is he basically corrected an assumption that we were running with. And we were miscategorizing the high performer in a way. And so the high performers he's working with are, you know, 100 millionaires, billionaires, professional athletes who the only way to get to where they are is to not have balance. They're likely dissatisfied with their life in some way. They're making major trade-offs. And that was something that became apparent in that. And I think that most of our audience is not high performers in the category of they have one single output in their life that is in the 0.1% of everybody. I think that just the realization that his frame on what a high performer was versus our frame of what a high performer was, like we needed to adjust the conversation early on, because I just don't, you know, I consider those people are high performers, but I would never want their life. Right.
Correct.
And so the lesson of make decisions quickly, that applies to everybody. I think that there's things to take away from that show, but one of the things I got from it was how the majority of his clients sounded like they were suffering, and they were willing to suffer in one area of their life to maximize another. And the reality that at some point when I achieve X, Y, or Z, then I'll stop suffering in this other category. But how we live our life, it's really, you know, going back to, you know, choosing, making our choices. It's to to choose your way back to family after you've sacrificed family for business for so long. It's not like I'm going to hang up my boots and now I'm a family man. That's not how that works. Because I've worked with people who had done that. I've worked with people who they were high performers in business, and they came to me because they were dissatisfied with what was happening in their personal life. And a lot of times it meant, oh, I'm selling my business. Oh, yeah. I'm making a dramatic shift, but it required months and months of rigorous work, and then having to give up the thing they'd worked so hard for in the first place, because they realized it didn't actually scratch the itch they were trying to scratch. And so, with Full Stack, this is my attempt to redefine what a high performer is, because it's 2026 and moving forward, we all have so much leverage available at our fingertips due to technology and AI that you can build $1 million business. You can live a very good lifestyle and make a really great impact in the world and not have to sacrifice your health and your family in the process.
Amen. I love that. And one of the takeaways I know everyone can take home, regardless of where they are and whether you're at that pinnacle level or you're sitting at $1 million a year, is sleep. The sleep aspect of things. We talk a lot about sleep and how he said blue light really wasn't the deciding factor on your quality of sleep. It was the arousal and your pursuit for scrolling that really kind of gets in the way. And one of the takeaways was the body's physical repair cycle occurs between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., while the mental and emotional repair occurs between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. So the founder who works until midnight and wakes up at 5 a.m. is systematically dismantling their own hormonal and cognitive architecture. So the importance of sleep there was certainly something that was debunked in terms of thinking the blue light was the issue. It was really our arousal, and as well as other things. But great episode there with Dr. Andy Galpin. We recommend you guys listening to. But I want to go into the consumption, and this was a good one with AJ Richards. Had me at work talking about quail math with everybody. But we really dove into the process of grass-fed, grass-finished, the slaughtering process of cattle, the confined animal feeding operations, how that could impact the meat, how the increased stress the animal is under in transport and approach to slaughter could impact the quality of the meat, and everything that AJ Richards is working on from the farm really opened up our eyes to the importance of the food we consume and the energy that we take from it, and how fragile our food infrastructure actually is.
Yeah. I remember it was over a decade. Yeah, it was about a decade ago, maybe a little bit longer. And I remember finally getting away from just counting my macros, finally getting away from just counting protein, fat, and carbs, and realizing that there's a lot of validity to the micronutrient profile, and putting some attention into whole foods that have dense micronutrient profiles. And when I made that shift, I felt very different in my body. My inflammation went down. Joints that I thought would be aching until the day I die stopped aching. And I realized that I actually didn't need as many calories in order to satisfy my energy requirements as I had previously thought. And so, the way that AJ is talking about how the food is raised to how it's distributed and all that, and how, I'm sure a lot of people listening to the show have some awareness around that. But one of the things I love that AJ is doing is just solving it at a systems level. The big takeaway, I think, that everyone could get from that show, and I think what he really wanted people to get, was like, you're voting with your dollars every time. And I remember when I was first dating my wife, and she thought that I was really crazy at times because I hadn't had a fast food meal in like 8 years. And that was insane. And I felt more of a sense of responsibility that I don't want to give McDonald's my dollars because that helps fund a poor system. I want to, because I understand economics. And if we increase the cash flow into a particular market, it increases their ability to grow the supply, which actually drives the cost of food down. And so for me, I'm looking at it from a global perspective of, I know it's going to cost me more money right now, and it can seem like I'm being bougie and I'm being like, on paper at face value, it can seem like, oh, this guy just wants to spend a shitload of money on food. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, I'm doing this for everybody. When I spend a lot of money on high quality food, this is what, and a lot of my friends do this, the circles I run in. We're the people who are going to bring the cost of high quality food down. It's not going to be a government mandate. It's not going to be, it's not going to be all this stuff that you want. It's not because you voted at a voting booth once every 2 to 4 years or whatever. It's how you spent your money is what's going to make the difference. And that's the point AJ got to. And I'm a firm believer in that.
No, I love that. And even if that's not enough of a mission for folks listening, it's also the impact of the meat that you eat. How he talked through the cycle when the stress hormones are high, the cortisol, the adrenaline, it actually brings down the glycogen, which is the energy reserve stored in the muscle upon slaughter. And that actually changes the pH of the meat, where the optimal pH would be 5.5, low stress harvest, retained glycogen, tender, nutrient dense, bioavailable protein, right? You mentioned those micronutrients. But when the stress is involved, chronic stress would be 24 to 48 hours pre-slaughter, you get that dark, firm, dry meat. And then you have acute stress, which is approximately 45 minutes before a slaughter. It's more pale and soft meat, low water retention, flat flavor, hormonal residue. So it actually impacts the quality of the nutrients that our body absorbs. And to your point, salute on the front lines, right?
Yep.
Defunding that system and funding the better system, as you mentioned, it's going to end up, I say trickle down, but it's going to end up bringing the cost down as the demand increases for that more sustainable approach.
Yeah, I think AJ mentioned something about eggs on the show, and they're like now trying to color the egg yolks to make them look healthier. And they do the same thing with meat. Most salmon is not pink at the store. It's dyed pink. They're also using special feed to make it look healthy, even though it's not. So you're talking about like that. We all, if you go into Walmart and you look at a shelf, you get that pale red, like that pink steak, like that doesn't look right. But also be aware that these companies are getting hip to that, and they are coloring the meat these days. So that's a reference point, but it's not something that you should totally base your choices off of. You still got to, meet your farmer.
I love that. Yeah, local farmers market, and find yourself to source some good food from the source. I want to jump into conversation we had with Pavel Stushlik or Pavel Aon in terms of the neuroacoustics and the sensory frontier of performance. And we mentioned not just the darkness retreat that he did, but also how he uses music, being a DJ, the importance of the 528 hertz miracle tone and hormonal reset, and the benefits that came with there. And I remember on YouTube, I used to play some of these, and at first I was like, oh man, is this actually doing anything? And I never looked at the research. And after having Pavel on, it was just like, it was a remembrance of like, you know what, let me jump into it. And turns out like there's evidence in the benefits of these hertz and how it could impact the body and our hormones.
Yeah. I mean, all of it matters. I have one friend, he's got like these different EMF things in his house, like doing different hertz, and then he's playing music that's at 528 hertz and this and that. And I remember a few weeks ago, we were like, is that actually, because well, it said so on Spotify. So that's like, there's also something to check there. It's like, yeah, you could throw up a track and call it 528 hertz on YouTube. And is it actually? So yeah, yeah, totally. There's plenty of evidence. There's scientific research out there showing these things are beneficial, and to what degree compared to all the other inputs that are coming in, I don't know. But that's the whole point of stacking. You're buying your good food. You're playing 528 hertz. Like, pull out all the stops. Just do all the good things.
Yeah, and aside from just the music, the sensory deprivation protocol when it comes to the darkness retreats, in terms of the identity shift, I know how Pavel shared a powerful story on what he went through day 7. You're gonna have to check out the full episode to get that. But I just pulled up some things on the neurochemical reorganization in total darkness and some of the benefits from the darkness retreat. Reduce stimulus. The reduction of stimulus. Sensory deprivation reduces stimulus to the nervous system by 70 to 75%, creating a more significant drop in stress than sleep alone. Melatonin and mitochondrial protection, sustained elevation of melatonin in the absence of lights helps to regulate oxidative stress and induces. You might want to help me with this word: hyponagogic. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not, but hypnagogic is what it seems like. Yeah.
Hypnagogic states, a blend of dreaming and waking consciousness. So definitely more susceptible to being hypnotized. And then default mode networks. We've been talking about that before. The ego, or that noise, and then neuroplasticity. The combination of theta waves and deep relaxation supports the brain's ability to rewire itself. So some of those benefits when it comes to being in that full darkness with a retreat and benefits that can come about it for someone who is brave enough to do so.
Yeah, one of the things I really liked about what he brought to the show was you don't have to go to a 10-day darkness retreat, and the cycles. It's, what do you do on a daily basis? What do they call it? Unhooking? The 30-minute unhook. Maybe go for a walk in silence. That's something I've had people who don't meditate or do anything, and I'm working with them. I go on a 30-minute walk and leave your phone at home. And that alone, that's life-changing. I really like the unhook for 30 minutes a day, 1 day a week, basically no electronics, 1 day a week. I think he's doing like a weekend a month or something like that. And then he's got his annual retreat. And I really like how he positioned that. I go, yeah, that all makes a lot of sense. And it's why I meditate, meditate for an hour this morning. And it's like totally something like taking an hour in total silence and can sharpen you so much. An hour of meditation can feel, there's like moments where I'm like, fuck this. And like, no, bring it back. Because it can, quote unquote, boring. But on the other side of that is so much focus and so much precision available that we don't realize how clouded and how busy the mind is in throwing us off and wasting so much energy until we're not doing that. And we spend 1 hour and then the rest of the day is just much better. So, yeah, you don't need to go do 10 days. Just go on that 30-minute walk to start. If you're not doing that yet, go do that.
Yeah, a great starting point, and it's helpful in slowing down. I even had to reprogram myself that. Got home from work today, caught myself with a spot on the calendar, and old Ted, the instinct was, fill this hour with some work because you need to get some stuff done.
Yeah.
And then I was like, nope. You got this recliner. Let's lay it back. Close your eyes a little bit. Let yourself relax. Slow your breath down. And it was fantastic. It was great. I didn't do the full hour. I did a bit of I'd say 25 minutes before I heard my phone buzz, and I was like, oh, wait, let me let me check that.
Nice.
But it was a good unplug, but also a reprogram from the go Ted. It was, no, what your body needs right now is to slow down and get rest. And that's kudos to you, the Full Stack Podcast, and everything we've been learning here. I want to jump ahead to our episode we did with Chris Dufay on the strategic alignment, money making versus meaning making machines. And this was great. We talked about this not too long ago on another episode, but how they don't have to necessarily be the same thing. Now, a lot of people try and chunk it together. I want my purpose and my business to be all together, but the money making machine without a meaning making machine, sure, could be a recipe for disaster if you only have one. But having the both and the two separate and even accentuate each other helps build that alignment and build more of that fulfillment in life. So I'd love for you to build more on that. And you, knowing Chris personally, you probably have more insights to share.
Yeah. If you really want to have leverage in business, it's like play to your strengths, do something that's easy for you. And a lot of time, if you're programmed to do things that are hard, then you may find it difficult. But yeah, I think that, I've actually kind of the opposite of Chris in a lot of ways, in that way. Like, I've always pursued deeper meaning. I'm pretty sure he's made more money than I have over the years. But I think people are just built differently. I have another friend, Jesse Elder, who we'll have on the show at some point. But he and I both have this thing in common. It's like, if we don't fucking love it, if it doesn't bring us joy, it just ain't happening. Doesn't matter how much money you throw at me. And so, there's, I check both those boxes. So I have a hard, I didn't really challenge him on that because I want to really get his perspective on it. And I'm sure my perspective may be different if I had children, because I think for people who have children, that's likely, from what I witness with people with kids, most of their meaning comes from their raising their children, right? And they want to be able to provide, for them. And so it's a lot easier for someone like myself. I don't have any kids. I can actually afford to sacrifice some cash in order to find meaning in my work. But I've watched a lot of my friends pursue meaningful work until they had kids, and the next thing you know, they're doing really boring jobs that make a lot of money. So, there's something to be said there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting how the perspective and the framing is per person, because having a kid, having my daughter, has enhanced the entrepreneurial approach for me. And maybe this is the meaning making machine, the money making machine. I'm saying that my goal and my plan, my countdown is I want the time freedom to coach my daughter's soccer team, baseball, whatever it is. That's really what my ambitions are. That's where I would value the riches is, and I say that whether it's coaching, sure, I might not have the IQ or the knowledge of the sport. There would probably be a better practitioner to teach her ballet than me. But it's the flexibility to be at all the games, all the recitals, or be present in those moments. I've been of the mind where, to your point, it doesn't matter really how much you pay me. If I can't be where I want to be when I want to be there, keep the money. I'd rather have my autonomy, my sovereignty, and approach life the way I'd like to. With that said, we've covered most of the guests that we've had so far there this year. Did I miss anyone? Is there any insight you wanted to touch on before a bit of an implementation approach for this full stack deep dive on some of the things we've learned so far, some things that these high performers could adapt in their lives, implement in their routine that could be beneficial for them? But anyone that we're missing or any insights that stick out?
I see in our notes, we talked about the escaping the drama triangle. Who was that with? Was that with?
That was with Michael Anders, the victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor. Yeah, let's jump into that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I don't know how you forgot about that. Yeah, we had Michael Anders on, who I speak to at least 2 or 3 times a month, and awesome coach. Yeah, and he brought up the victim, rescuer, persecutor. He brought up the drama triangle, and it was really cool to hear his perspective on the drama triangle, because I have a different perspective on it. Like the application of the drama triangle, I had never applied it in the way that he had discussed. But I think that the drama triangle is something that everybody should be aware of, because the human mind really positions, like when you walk into a room, you automatically start assigning roles of someone who's the persecutor, who's the rescuer, and who's the victim. And my perspective on it, the way I like to apply it and explain to people is it happens in politics. I like using politics a lot because most people get really emotional about it. And like, I think that one of the things that would benefit the world the most is if people stop being so emotionally invested in, what the media is saying about what's happening politically. But most politicians, what they do is they say, you're a victim, the other side are persecutors, and I'm the rescuer or the hero, right? There's different names in the drama triangle. It could be like victim, villain, and hero also is another way of saying it. And anytime anyone starts positioning themselves as the hero and trying to tell you that you're a victim, ignore those people. Because the victim, villain, and hero is something that just lives in the mind. It's not true. And if you really get the perspective of everybody and you sit down and you start talking to people, there is no victims, villains, or heroes. It's everyone's on their own, journey. And so I believe like one of the most powerful moves you can do in personal development is to collapse the drama triangle. And it's not something that's done overnight, but you start, once you become aware of it, you can start spotting it. And then, this is how pendulums work too. Going back to earlier in the conversation is I have sovereignty over my energy, and I no longer give it to that pendulum. I no longer do that. So I use politics because it's so easy to spot. Like right now, it's like ICE is the villain, the illegal immigrants are the victims, and the hero is, a Democrat politician, and Trump, or, ICE, Trump, whatever. Like that is the entire news cycle. You could just bring the drama triangle to everything you see on the news, and you'll start seeing it, and you'll go, oh, then once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you automatically, your energy starts coming back home to you. Yeah. And if everybody were to do that, politics would not be what they are today. And it would be a much more peaceful organization of people. Government wouldn't be so damn violent. Yeah.
When you conserve your energy and you take your energy back, you take the power away from the pendulum, if you would. It doesn't have the same pull. It doesn't have the same influence. And seeing that all over, you mentioned politics. I see in the sports team, right? Your team is the rescuer. The other team is the prosecutor, and you're the victim of the outcome. Because I know some people who their team loses, they're mad all day long.
I think sports is really interesting to me. I used to be really into sports, and I fell out of love with sports when I got out of the Navy, actually. And I could probably reflect on it and figure out exactly what happened, but it was an unconscious thing that happened for me where I'm like, I'm not giving that my attention anymore. And I just witnessed people spend their entire Sunday and an entire day of the week devoted to watching sports, getting aggravated, screaming at the TV, all this energy expenditure. I'm like, man, I would rather just be hanging out with friends, experiencing intimate connections, reading a book, improving myself in some way, relaxing. When I watch people watching sports, I don't see people relaxing. I see them getting amped up. And yeah, it's a very interesting. Yeah, it makes it very hard to go get your hair cut because,
Yeah.
they just want to talk about sports. I'm like, sorry, bro, I don't talk about sports. And they're like, I don't know what to talk about, but like, that's not my problem,
Yeah. But it's interesting too, because on the opposite side, a lot of my friends are all about sports. And I watch sports because I am a huge fan of just the physical ability of these athletes. Yet I don't have any emotional attachment to it. Like I value high standards. I value high performance. I value what it takes for someone like a Tom Brady to do what he does. And this is coming from a Dolphins fan who hated Tom Brady his entire career. But then he moved to Tampa Bay and then won it again. And I was like, all right, I can't hate on the guy. But there's a lot of reflections from sports into life. And those are some of the things that I take away. But I don't have the emotional connection. But bringing this all home, kind of a full stack deep dive protocol for anyone that's listening, thinking, what do I do with all this information? Right, Mike? It's like, okay, what do I do with this? And this is not a prescription. We're not telling people what to do. These are just, I guess, recommendations, some insights from the guests that we've had and bringing all that together. So the morning frequency alignment, we talked about reality transurfing. Possible protocol is spending 10 minutes in detachment, observe the upcoming business day or observe your upcoming day without emotional involvement, right? Prevent that creation of importance for that excess potential. And I've caught myself of waking up and I'm like, oh, I got so much to do today. I got to do this. You lost the day before it even started, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I stay away from making lists in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I may journal out is what's on my mind so I can forget about it. But yeah.
Yeah. Another protocol is the 528 hertz transitional reset. If anyone commutes into work, being from New York, I remember having an 1.5 to 2 hour commute. I do not envy you guys anymore. But if let's say you have a 5-minute commute, during the commute, before you enter the home, before you get to work, listen to music tuned at 528 hertz, right? This induces cortisol reduction, oxytocin release, flushes the business frequency before engaging with family if you're coming home from work. So a lot of people can get a benefit from reprogramming themselves. I remember watching a podcast a while ago. The guy, he sounded crazy to me at the time, but he said like when he gets home from work.
Now you're the crazy guy.
I've drank the Kool-Aid, Mike. I'm in it. I'm in it. Ben Patulski, I believe his name was, the bodybuilding yogi. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
I know Ben.
Yeah, he was saying how, and it made sense. It makes sense now. He's like, he can't be who he is at the gym with his family at home. Like he can't be like that at home with his daughter. So he would literally change at the door and then go in. At first I was like, what? But there is some truth to that. You can't be the same person to everybody in your life. Obviously there's a through line, but a great way to reset is playing this music, helping to induce cortisol reduction, oxytocin release, flush your business frequency out before entering the home. Have you tried any of this? Have you experienced this?
Well, one, I'll challenge that perspective. I don't agree with it.
Okay.
You can't be, if you bring all of you to everything all the time, a lot of people, they have a belief that if they brought their entire self, we talked about this before, their entire self to their profession, that they'd be rejected. And I've worked with people to flip that, and they brought their whole self to their work and everybody loved it. Everything started working better, but they had this belief that they needed to be this way here and not over here.
Mm-hmm.
So I do, when I look at that, I go, okay, I have a belief about my business that I need to be a certain way in my business. And I leave a part of me at the door when I step into my business. And it's actually not, I'm not being different people in different scenarios. I'm actually just cutting a part of myself off when I'm stepping into a professional thing, or when Ben's stepping into the gym, he's cutting off a part of himself. And so, and then he's having to, what I'm imagining is happening for him, because I don't know, only he knows, but I've worked with people on this, so I'm familiar with the pattern, is now they like integrate more of who they actually are before they walk into through the home. And so that's what I imagine is happening for him. I'd have to talk to him, at length about it in order to find out. But I mean, we get him on the show at some point, but I do when I'm done working, because what happens is my energy does shift throughout the day, right? We all have like cycles throughout the day. So I do have a ritual when I'm done working to downregulate my nervous system. And it's not really to protect anybody or anything like that. It's more of just like, I'm moving from this frame to this frame. And as I'm working, there might be some agitation that builds, or, I'm getting like hyper focused in my mind. I want to get back in my body a little more. I personally use a chi machine. I do 15 minutes on a chi machine that's my ritual from I leave work, and I do the chi machine, and the chi machine automatically slows my breath down to about 3 or 4 breaths per second. And so instead of needing to practice breath work,
You said per second. You meant per minute? 3 or 4 breaths per minute? Okay.
Yeah. 3 or 4 breaths per minute, probably like closer to like the 3. So nice. I'm taking like 1 breath every 20 seconds. I've timed it. And it automatically just chills me out. It's pumping the lymph. People can look up chi machine online. Don't get a cheap one, get a good one. But that's my ritual. And that actually, I do that so that when I'm done working around 4 or 5, that I'm able to, I'm beginning to wind down for bed is actually why I'm doing it. But it just makes me calmer. But I'm pretty damn calm throughout the whole day. So
you seem calm.
I do get amped up sometimes. But it's a lot less often than it used to be.
Same here. I'm a lot more regulated these days. The 10-point audit quadrant system, and I did something similar like this. I crafted a planner. I've used a whole bunch of planners. I finally designed what I call the daily discipline, and it offers gratitude, reflection. This is more systemized in terms of every Sunday. If you really like that 4-quadrant approach, distribute the 10 points across the 4 quadrants: business, relationships, training, and recovery, and see how you did. You could do it in a reflective approach, or you could even do it preemptively, plan out the week and how you're going to distribute these points. But I do think whether it's the 4 quadrant, my gratitude and I write down 3 things I'm thankful for, 3 things I could do today to make today great, 3 things I can improve on. And at the end of the day, I kind of look back at, man, how did I do? How did I show up in these arenas? We talked about sports earlier. I related to watching tape. And for me, it's been helpful in terms of, okay, how did I show up? What was my intention for the day? How close to that did I land? Just an intentional practice of auditing self, I think is very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've got my own system. So I built myself a custom dashboard for that. So the things that I find that work for me, I think using somebody else's system is a great start. And then because we have AI now, like you can just build custom dashboards.
Yeah.
So
I have a good friend. I'd love to see it. He's a gamer, and he gets experience and like the AI gives him experience every day, and like he'll level up, and it's based on how on task he is with his goals and stuff. So whatever creative approach you can have, whether it's the dashboard, something physical, all very helpful. And coming up in the last couple minutes here, the sovereign meat sourcing. You've already touched on how you're helping vote with your dollars, sourcing more valuable meat. Replace all industrial meat with 100% grass-fed, field harvest proteins. And these could be something as simple as going to your local farmer's market or meeting some of the local farmers, or maybe as extreme as folks who want to get their own set up or start with quails in the backyard.
Or, AJ's got his website from the farm. You can find your source there. You may not shake their hand, but he's validated that there are good sources. You can get it from there.
as close to the source as you can get. And then finally is the working in requirement, right? For every 2 high intensity workouts, perform 1 working in session, Tai Chi, slow walking, breath work. You mentioned the 30-minute walking practice. And I've learned more and more that recovery is part of high performance. Recovery is part of training. And it's so counterintuitive, Mike. I've been reading about this for a while. Like Peak Performance was a book I read in like 2017, and it showed like research on Olympic athletes who peaked and then didn't really make it after that. But then like the sustained athletes and the sustained top performers intentionally rest. And I remember reading that book and I was like, nah, get out of here. So I guess in my adult age, I've learned the error of my ways.
Yeah. I mean, I pushed it way too hard as a young athlete. If I would have carved out a third of the time I spent training and I committed to recovery, I would have been a much better athlete. Yeah. I just didn't have anyone hammering me on it. So,
man, so much value and so much to learn. And honestly, your life can change if you implement just a few of these practices. And if you want more of it, just one. Yeah. That's all it takes.
Just do one. And then usually like people make one shift and then the shifts that happen after that become really easy because you're like, oh, in 1 month I felt way better. What else is there? And then that's where the stacking starts coming in. Absolutely.
And that's also helpful for sustainability. If you try doing all of this at once, it's going to be hard to maintain. You're setting yourself up for failure. I like habit stacking, pun intended. But like you said, try one, maintain it for a while, and that could lead to all the others. Out of what we've shared, as we have just about a minute left, what do you think would be the domino that falls into the others? If the listener could only apply one of these, what practice do you think would give the most impact that could ripple into all the other areas?
The one that it usually makes the most impact for people is the one that if they look at their life, and whatever area of your life you're suffering in the most, usually it's the thing that's the highest leverage is the thing that's the most easy to overlook, because what you've been trying to do isn't working. And so the mind tends to avoid, like automatically, like even forget certain things. And so that's why this is an important episode, is because one is the one that feels like the one that you want to disregard the most probably is the highest leverage thing for you. That's one. But then there's, if you're not actually going to follow through with it, I say just go to the one you feel most drawn to. And so it really depends on how the person is built. It took me a long time of doing personal development before I realized that the thing that seemed most counterintuitive is probably my highest leverage. But we have a tendency to not take action on those things. So you really got to, like, if you go, oh, I'm going to go with the most counterintuitive thing, and then 2-3 days in, you throw it out the window, then just choose something else. But also note, I threw that out the window. And so just track yourself over time and track how much you do that.
Yeah. And there's nothing like accountability. So if you're looking for some people to keep you accountable and also share your wins, share your progress, I encourage all the listeners, everybody watching, join the Full Stack community, join our school community. Let us know what you thought from these insights and find others who are applying this stack as well. But guys, that's the recap of what we've had so far in 2026. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We got so much more coming for you. I'm going to share again just some of the quick notes from this. You already know I always have notes at the end, but Reality Transurfing. It's studying metaphysics. Like Mike said, anybody he knows that has that joy in their life at least touched on metaphysics. So maybe you don't need to try harder. Maybe you just need to make better choices, because the life you want and the life you desire does not require more effort, just better choices. You're voting with your dollars every single time. Are you funding the system that you want to support you, or are you just going to make better choices with where your dollars go? And start a 30-minute walk practice. We've mentioned whatever other practice you want to take on to, but that's another one that would drastically help. You don't have to spend 10 days in the dark. You could start small and then play to your strengths. Do what's easy for you. Ignore the hero, rescuer, dismantle the drama triangle because it's all in your mind. And of course, keep stacking your life better and better. That's what we're here for. We'll keep providing more. That's Mike. I'm Ted. You made it to the end. We'll catch you guys next time.